Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we explore entertaining and enlightening discussions of the adventure of life and all things good. From science and technology to history and philosophy to leadership and success. We hope to give you a better understanding of the world and skills for everyone to pursue their own adventure. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we talk about all things good in the pursuit of the adventure of life. I'm Zach, and we got a great show today. We're diving into the fourth Zachism, known as knowing your job, knowing your role. However, I can't do this alone, so as always, I'm joined by Rafe. Rafe, how are we doing today?
Hey Zach, I'm great. You know what? I wonder if you couldn't do this alone. It would be that'd be kind of fun to just sit back and watch you go through it, and at the end you'd be like, I can do this alone, and I'm just dragging, like I'm just ballast. Okay, think of me as ballast. I keep, I'm at the bottom of the ship, just keeping it from tipping over. Now, Zach, I'm great. It's always good to do these things with you. It's good to see your smiling face from across the interwebs. See, you got a haircut. That's nice. Your mom would be happy. So no, it's all good. Everything is great. We have Zach, we were looking at the stats the other day, and I just want to say thank you to all our listeners. All right, it is amazing that they are out there, that they find what we are saying helpful to them. We're all flattered and humbled. Listeners, without you, we are literally talking to the walls. And we're talking to each other, but you guys give us purpose and desire to make what we do, not waste your time. As always, you can contact us again if you'd like at bufnagle@bufnagle.com or at legal@bufnagle.com. Find us on Twitter and Instagram. The podcast is available at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, all other sorts of places. If you would like it on a platform that does not exist, it's kind of interesting because how could you listen if it wasn't on? But anyway, if you want to have us get on like Soupty-doopty-doo podcast and you can point us there, we'll get ourselves put on there. So if you are new to the podcast, welcome. We are very glad you're here. Give us a number of episodes. Come back weekly for a couple weeks in a row. We're talking about all sorts of different things. Give us 4 episodes and we'll give you a reason to come back for some more. Remember, tell a friend to listen and you will get a free episode. And Zach, remember this, we are looking to grow this little Bufnagle team, and we're looking for a helper to help us sound good and look even better. Send us your information. If you have experience doing, sound mixing and audio production, and if you can do things like make audio files overlap each other so Zach and I sound like we're talking at the same time or in the same room, let us know. We would love to have a little intern help us out. A couple hours a week would be great. Send us a little resume or when you were in 4th grade and you made that cookbook of that you made for your mom on Mother's Day, like here's our favorite recipe. If you want to send us that, we'll look at that and consider that adequate evidence of your ability to do this job. Feel free to send it our way. Zach, that's the housekeeping start. It's going to be a great day.
Started, I would say. I do think maybe we should try out the Zach do the episode alone idea. We'll see how that goes in the future. It might be a shorter episode, however.
Giving you evidence to try to do that. All right, go ahead.
But anyways, moving on. Like I mentioned earlier at the top, we're talking another Zachism. This is the 4th in the series. It's actually the 3rd in the order, but it's the 4th in the series because we've switched a few things up. It's know yourself, know your role. And like most of these things, there's a quote associated with the mantra that leads us to what we talk about today. And that quote comes from one of your favorite people, Rafe. And it goes, if everyone does what they're supposed to do, we win. So the message to the players is, do your job.
Yeah, and that's Bill Belichick, all right, Nashville native. Zach, did you know that? And no. Unsuccessful coach of the Cleveland Browns, but very successful coach of Tom Brady and the New England Patriots for 20 some years or so. And, people love to mock Belichick. Certainly our friend Who
My
who is the
brother-in-law.
guy? Your brother-in-law is not a big Belichick fan, but the Caliendo, Frank Caliendo, does a great Belichick impersonation with a lot of mumbling and stuff. And it's he is who he is, and he did a couple funny commercials last fall, which was good. But he's had great success. He also had a Tom Brady, but he has had great success, and he has a lot of times the players get plugged in, and he said, or they get plugged into the spot where they're in. And he says, you got to know what you're doing here. You have to know your role. So Zach, you've kind of turned that adage, that pillar into something that, well, it's certainly made the list here, the pillars. So you've had that experience in your athletic career, certainly with regard to your senior college rugby season. We talked very briefly about this at the
Yep.
last when we did the overview. So let's take me through that again of where things were your senior year.
Yeah, so I think it's also important to note before we dive into this a little bit that everyone brings something unique and different to a role and to a team environment, to a group environment, and it's manifesting those skill sets into the job so that job is performed to the highest level for that person. So each person is going to do a job, and their ability to do that job is based on their abilities and what they bring to the table and their unique skill set. And if you would plug somebody who had a unique skill set into a role that doesn't fit, they're going to perform poorly at their job, regardless of how talented they are. So there's a balancing act going on here, and that's a coaching job, and that's a teaching job, and that's a leadership job that we will talk about at the end. But I'm just going to set up the bookmark there.
No,
But
yeah, that's great. I apologize for jumping the gun there on that. And that's going to be real important. We're going to come back to how to make the pieces fit and make
yep,
adjustments along the way. But that falls into the situation you found yourself in after a number of years playing competitive rugby, and then your senior year at Gonzaga, playing with the Bulldogs. You were faced with a scenario that kind of tipped the apple cart a little bit.
yeah. So my senior year, we were looking to be a fairly competitive team. We just finished our seventh season, which I can touch on a little bit as well, where we kind of a relatively unknown team, but we played in, I believe it was 4 straight weekend tournaments, and then we had a weekend off, and then we had our championship tournament, which was our qualifier for nationals. But in those 4 weeks preparing ahead of time, we, for the most part, mixed and matched our team and got guys' experiences. And we had a lot of young players. We had 2 seniors, we had a handful of juniors who were backs, quicker, twitchy players, very athletic, very talented. And then we had a bunch of freshmen and a bunch of sophomore players that we were trying to work into our role and into our lineup.
Yeah, so just a little bit of housekeeping. The college rugby scenario, the seasons, there's a sevens season and then a 15s season, and 15s is like it's the full game. You got 15 men on each side, and it's the rugby you see when they play the World Cup. The sevens is kind of like I liken it to like 3-on-3 basketball. Like it's about half as many people. It's a very quick game. They play very short games. They're only 14 minutes long, right, Zach?
Yep.
Right.
Two 7 minutes halves, and you get a 1 minute halftime. But
Yeah, so so you can play a whole big tournament over the course of a weekend. You can a lot of big round robin thing, but it's very few players. It's a very quick game, and sevens it looks kind of like rugby, but it's not the same way. And so just like you play full court basketball different than you play half court 3-on-3, you play full court rugby 15s different than you play the sevens thing. So in the fall, you guys play sevens, and then in the springs, you play 15s.
yeah, so our sevens team was I floated around multiple different positions, but one of those tournaments, and this is where the whole idea for what we did in 15s came from. We went with we only brought 2 of our starters from our main sevens group, myself and Dara, and we kind of were just there to help and guide the younger players, get them experience because it was a really good tournament for them to get experience. But what we realized during the middle of it is we had some athletic guys we wanted to test out a little bit, we didn't necessarily have guys in the forward group. For sevens, a little different. So we decided to move me to the hooker position, just to kind of have some leadership, some stability, and a guy to kind of position the guys who might not know what they're doing on the edges, so we can continue attacking and pushing.
Yeah, so there's two general there's a general partition of players in rugby. There's forwards and there's backs, and the I guess the affectionate term for the forwards is what the big uglies. Is that what you call them?
Yeah, that the big sexies, whatever you want.
The big
Big
uglies.
and then insert whatever word after is
Yeah, the
really what
big
it comes down to.
yeah, the big whatevers. Those are the guys up front, and you would think of them if you're thinking about football. You would think of them as the linemen, but
Yeah.
there's a subtle difference. And the other guys are the backs, the skill players, as they say. And but in rugby, there's no. This is interesting. Everybody thinks it's like football without pads, but it's really not. There's a rule in rugby that you can't engage another player who doesn't have the ball. And so all the contact in rugby takes place at the ball. It doesn't do any good to get ahead of your teammate and you can't block. You have to just kind of stand there. And so the whole game takes place at the ball and behind. So the only contact takes place right at the ball. So having a big ugly out front doesn't necessarily help unless those guys are going against the other big uglies on the other team one-on-one with the ball. So you're Zach's not a real big man. For those of you out there in TV land, Zach is not.
I'm
Not what
below
you,
average in height and slightly above average in weight.
but good looking. All right, and he makes mean scrambled eggs. All right,
I don't really I make really good breakfast sandwiches.
breakfast
Is my
sandwiches.
new thing to do in 2021.
Okay, so Zach can make breakfast sandwiches, all right, and he knows a lot about the game, but he's not a particularly big guy. So if you were picking rugby players, you probably would want to put Zach in with the backs. But you found out in that 7 season, Zach, that there was real value in putting your knowledge of the game up front.
Yeah, there was like this positional element that we realized that Zach can be in this position, and we'll call it the right side of the field for lack of a better term, while the left side of the field is more dominated by like our heavier skill players, and then Zach can manipulate the right side of the field so the left side of the field can score more. Is pretty much what we realized at that tournament, and then we used that kind of as the framework for our last our last 2 tournaments, including the championship tournament, of the fact that we have Zach, so we can build our lineup based on who we're playing. And then we're like, okay, cool, we have these 6 guys. Okay, Zach's going to play here in this game. So we were able to manipulate where I was playing on the field to give ourselves the best chance of winning.
And that's because you had a good fundamentally you had a really good knowledge of the game and how to. I don't want to say take advantage of the rules. It's not accurate, but how the game is played.
Getting caught.
Well, that's not one of the pillars, right? At least not in business, right? Cheat without getting caught. All right, so but that's the idea. Is your skill set was fun. I mean, you can handle the ball with all of them. You're pretty speedy, but knowledge of the game is, you can take a 43-year-old Tom Brady and win a Super Bowl because his knowledge of the game is really good, and his skill set's obviously good too, but it helped to have you on that side. So in the fall, you guys started playing sevens a little differently in a way to put yourself in the best position to win. And that carried over into the spring.
Yeah. So we, after our 7th tournament, we finished second in that tournament, which was a very big deal, highest we've ever placed. All those other fun accolades you want to give us. We did it. It was, a kind of a we're on the map type moment. It was the equivalent to the 98 Gonzaga March Madness run, in my opinion. But I'm biased.
Really?
But it kind of set the foundation and the framework for we can be successful with Zach doing things that would look out of character. I was a very good support player as a back, so I was able to, if guys were coming out of contact or into contact, I was able to be there to recycle the ball quickly or to get the ball and continue attacking. So there was this continual flow thing, and we realized we can apply that same concept with Zach in the forwards without losing anything we're doing in the backs.
Right. So this is like you can't just have one player who's off the charts in this team situation, right? You have a player that has a skill set, and you ought to put that player in a role, in a position that's going to maximize the contribution to the team. And well, they did that with you, and they did that with everybody else as
Yeah,
well. But the thing is that you seemed a little out of place, but the value was in knowing the role you needed to play.
yeah. So in 15s, we moved me. So I was one of our starting centers, and we moved me to be one of our starting flankers with additional duties as 8-man, depending on how sub strategies went. That's a completely unrelated point. But so my job was to play flanker. I was playing number 7 because rugby positions are based on numbers, like old soccer jerseys used to be before soccer got all it's all about me and my hair. Rugby is still about the number on the back of your jersey. So I was playing 7, which meant I was around every single breakdown. I was trying to recycle the ball as quickly as possible, and I was pretty much, unless I was in open field, not touching the ball.
Right. So that's the thing to point out is that before, when you were a back, the backs are doing the backs get the ball in the breakaways, right? In the long runs, the exciting runs, and the forwards, when they do touch the ball, and everybody is eligible to touch the ball and carry the ball. Those are the little plotting, 3 yards in a cloud of dust kind of thing. So when you moved from being a back, when you were a back, you were scoring a lot. When
Yep.
you went to being a forward, that kind of dried up.
Yeah. So my junior year, I scored at over a game, try a game clip, which is actually pretty much really uncommon. But that's not the point. Is I was scoring the ball a lot. I was touching the ball a lot, and I was setting up my teammates to score a lot. I was a facilitator in that backline, creating offense. And then, since I was not touching the ball anymore, that opportunity did not exist. But the opportunity and the things that I did well, supporting, being quick to rucks, recycling ball, that type of skill set did exist, and we used that to propel our offense. So our backs, who were very talented, Daniel Hodge, Dara, Joe Keane, Mike DeKillo, we had 3, 4, 5, 6. We were 6 guys deep in our backline. Anyone could touch the ball and score. They got more opportunities because Zach was giving them the space and the freedom not to commit to a ruck, not to dive into those plays, so that they were opened up and they were loose to be able to make plays.
Yeah. So basically, you went from scoring a try is essentially a touchdown.
Yep.
Actually, in rugby, they actually touch it down, right? But it's called a
You get the
try. Yeah, and you get to try to kick it through when you score a try. So that's where the word comes from. But so you went from glory, accolades, being on everybody's fantasy college rugby team to pretty much not. The phone calls from the anonymous what would I say, the people trying to contact you to sell soap and auto parts, those things dried up. But you know what you did is put the other people in position to win. And it's that killing of the ego, that sacrifice of self, that allowed the team to succeed.
Yeah, it was me realizing, okay, what do I want to do more than anything? And that was win. So how am I going to do that? And I realized I had a game plan that I gave for myself. It was I'm at every ruck. If I miss a ruck, I'm at the next 2, and there's no question. So I set myself up and to be in a position to be successful, so that our players who are a lot more athletic, a lot more talented, a lot faster than me had
But not
position and
but
had
but not
ability.
as good looking.
Yeah, it depends on the day. Depends on if I had a black eye or a broken nose or
Yeah, I
not.
gotcha.
Um, but it depended on them getting the opportunities to be successful, to push things through. Um, and it was difficult to do in that first little bit of time, but I got used to that role. And additionally, I provided much needed leadership for those forwards who were mainly composed of sophomores and freshmen at the time.
So you became kind of the old man on the front line telling the young kids what to do. So who who was I mean, so you guys got together and decided that you're going to do this kind of switcheroony, and they said, Zach, are you all right with this? And you were like, yeah, I'll do that for an extra $6 million in my signing bonus or something, right? I mean, is that what was? I mean, so there was a decision. Somebody made a decision and said, you know what, we got to move you. We have, for the good of the team, you need to take on a new role. Did that send you into despair and darkness, or did that how'd that go?
Um, so the meeting was there was three of us. I forget who was even there at this point, but we realized that we were deep with our center position, and I was playing center, and we realized we could plug in somebody. It doesn't matter, and they can perform just as well as Zach, maybe even better. And we can move Zach to play flanker, and Zach's going to play just as good, if not better, because he can play similar things. He can do similar things. Yes, he won't be touching the ball. Yes, he won't be scoring. But the other things that I brought to the team, support at ruck, support to keep the ball recycling, was something that we couldn't necessarily teach a guy who was new to the game or teach a guy who was new to playing the game in college. So there was this sense of, okay, Zach, you got to step up and you got to kind of teach and educate those around you, these weird little things that you do at a high level to help us be successful.
Yeah, so part of that is you became then a teacher,
Yep.
right? Instead of just another player. And so you guys had a successful senior year.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, you mentioned the teacher part, so I'm gonna go on this a little bit. But I spent a lot of time Friday nights. I would say, all right, forwards, we're getting together, we're watching film for 30 minutes, we're gonna eat dinner together as like a forward group. And the point of that watching film was to look at the way these guys were attacking rucks offensively to support their teammates, the way they were supporting each other like on support lines to keep the ball and things in open play. And it was teaching those little things because I wasn't going to be around forever, so that they could, when they become sophomores and juniors and seniors, they had the ability to be successful in that way as well. And kind of like that passing down that community of, I'm going to show up and I'm going to do these things and I'm going to help lead to our success that way.
Yeah, so your role changes throughout a career, right? I mean, you start whatever you start doing, and eventually you work your way through, and eventually you become your role changes. You may not be the same person at 60 that you were at 40, you were at 25. So I've seen similar things of knowing your role and knowing how to do what you need to do. I've seen that in the business environment as well. It is not always, we talk about building leaders, and leaders are good things to have, because without a leader, you all kind of just stand around and wait for somebody to deliver you, bring you empanadas or something. But you got to have good followers, all right? And good followers know their role. I'm reminded when you talk about this, it's not always about sports. I'm thinking about meetings that I've gone to at with companies to go talk to the FDA. And for those of you who don't know, oftentimes what happens when you submit an application to get your drug or your product approved by the FDA, oftentimes there's what's called a panel meeting, and they will bring in, anywhere from 4 to a dozen very smart people that have read all the papers you've sent them, and they will sit in a big U-shaped table, and they will quiz the company on all sorts of medical and data stuff for a full day, and then they will make some sort of decision about whether or not they recommend the FDA approves your product. And it's a very high stress, very long game. It's an 8 or 9 hour game where you spend a lot of time practicing for it, preparing for it, making plans. And of course, as they say, once the battle starts, well, before the battle starts, plans are indispensable, but after it starts, they're completely useless, right? So
Like that.
yeah, so that happens. And there is, I've been part of that group that actually gets called up to ask, stand behind the podium, and they ask you questions and you answer them. But when that question gets asked, there's a whole cadre of people behind you that are scrambling around trying to find the right slide to put up on the projector. They're scrambling around to maybe do a very quick and easy data analysis. They're coming up with, they're saying, somebody will whisper in your ear, that's in page 498 of volume 6, and so they're feeding you all of these things so that you can answer and get it ready in real time. And that is, for every person there at the front, at the pinnacle or the apex of the group, there are dozens of people sitting behind you quietly doing their job. We went to FDA, and I remember a guy I worked with on a daily basis. He's got an MBA. He's got all sorts of clinical background material. He knows everything about the product. He knows everything about the science, everything about the medicine. His job that day was to hit the button on the PowerPoint slideshow. So we would go to the next one and make sure it was loaded up. And if somebody had a question, he knew all the slides and he could pull up the ones that we needed in real time. And this is a guy, you could say, well, anybody could do that job. But you know what? We needed that guy to do that job on that day. And he did great. I mean, that's exactly what you need to have. You need to kill the ego and do the job that requires at the time.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, you kill the ego, you sacrifice the self, you sacrifice the team. You find the thing that you would die for, and you die for it. Legit, like, yeah, it sounds dumb. It might be a PowerPoint slide to FDA, but like that's something you believe in. It's a product you believe in. You present yourself in that way. It's all those other things. It's leaders creating other leaders, and then leaders being teachers. It's those concepts of knowing where you fit into the hierarchy. And I don't like using the term hierarchy, but it's understanding what your role is and how that you can contribute to the overall success. You can be, the guy who provides catering to Tom Cruise on this Mission Impossible 12 movie. And if Tom Cruise doesn't get his food, he could be in a position where he can't perform a stunt well. He gets injured, the movie doesn't like, and that's 100 people's jobs lost because the catering guy forgot to get Tom Cruise's banana. Granted, that's an oversimplification, but again, make sure you eat your bananas. And 2, Tom Cruise does all the stunts. That's all I got.
Yeah, well, no, you're right, and I think we all kind of realize that, but Zach, that's hard, right? I mean, that's a hard thing to do. Certainly, when you see somebody, somebody gets to do whatever the job is, and you're like, I'd kind of like to do that job, right? I mean, you're like, and it's even worse when you think, I'd kind of like to do that job. I can do that job. I can do that job better than the person they picked. How do you tell? Okay, so here's the next thing is I'm going to take it to sports, but it also falls into business. We'll start with the sports analogy and then we'll go to business. How do you tell the parents of the sophomore second string left tackle? How do you tell the parents that, you know what? Yeah, he's not playing tonight. And he probably won't play all season except for maybe a couple mop-up minutes in the game against the really bad team. How do you tell those parents that, yeah, he's not going to play? That's not his job. So how do you get them to not tell him to quit, to tell him to walk away? How do you do that? And how do you get the parents to understand that there's a role, he's filling a role, it's about the team? How do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, high school sports, they don't teach us how to be great athletes. They teach us how to deal with things in life, and this is the perfect example of it. It's you're the second string guy. Your job is to prepare the first team defense to perform at a high level, so that when they face the first team of whoever you're playing against, that they're in a good position to be successful. Additionally, you want to be pushing the guy that's ahead of you so that he performs better, and that
No,
collectively you're all pulling the same rope and you're all getting better. And then when your time comes, you're in a position that you can step in and you can be successful.
but you've seen coaches and environments where this doesn't always happen. You were telling me about you saw a high school practice with a scout team.
Yep.
Can you
Yeah,
tell?
so the scout team offense versus the first team defense, and the scout team is there to prepare the defense to what may happen, how to prep for the game, and what needs to be done so that they can perform at a high level. The scout team doing their job, and the running back, the play was a run up the middle. the interior defensive lineman, middle linebacker did a really good job of filling the hole. So the running back kind of bounced around the outside looking for a gap. But the defensive end on that side did not seal the edge, and he cut in. The running back noticed that, and he spotted around, and he scampered off for a 20-yard touchdown. And then the coach yelled at the running back as opposed to the defensive end who did not perform his job of sealing the edge.
Yeah.
And if you're the running back, it's I'm sorry, dude. Like that's a tough situation. You did exactly what you made the first team defense look bad. And in all honesty, if you're playing scout team in anything in life, your job is to make that team that you're going against look bad so that they perform better. That is doing your job.
Well, didn't they say that Aaron Rodgers used to do that when he was running the scout team, as he would make the defense look bad, and at that point they were realizing, you know what, I think we can push this guy up higher. But that's fundamentally about understanding your role. I mean, you've got to embrace the role that you have in order to be successful, and you may not be the guy giving the overview presentation for the press release. You may not be the guy who's you may not be the lead in the movie. You may have a bit part of the guy who drives the taxi for the main character, right? There are roles for all of those things. The Academy Awards give awards for supporting actors, right? I mean, guys who are not the top dog, but they know their role. When I was coaching these youth sports, it was really, really hard because everybody wants Johnny to score every basket, all right, to get every rebound, all right. And the thing I found that was most beneficial to getting the team to work well was to everybody sees the guy who made the basket, all right. I made it a point every time to point out the kid who set the pick. So the guy got free, so he made, for every guy that gets free for a slam dunk, there's 2 or 3 things that happened before that. Somebody made a great pass. Somebody set a pick. Somebody pulled their guy out of the lane so that it wasn't clogged up. Those things all have to happen for that one guy to get the thing. So I guess if you're coaching, if you are leading, make sure you recognize those things, those little things that don't make it into the stat sheet. Point those out, Zach, in the film session. Point those out with the email to the colleagues. Like, hey, I heard you stayed late Thursday night and made those photocopies so that Tim was ready to go on Friday. I really appreciate that. Those things speak volumes. You want people to step up, do those kinds of things.
Yeah, I mean, it's little things. Like for me, it was after every game my senior year, I would find a freshman or a sophomore that was newer to the team, and I would say, "Hey, you did a great job coming in. Granted, you played 25 minutes, you came in as a sub, but you brought energy. We needed that." Yes, like maybe they touched the ball 3 times, maybe whatever they didn't score, but I noticed as a player having them come on the field that there's almost a relief of like, okay, cool, Tommy's in the game. We got 25 minutes to go. We got this. It's those little type of things that like kind of shift your mindset a little bit. It's the guy who washes the jerseys so that they smell and they look clean, so that when you step on the field, you're okay, cool. We got fresh jerseys on. We don't have to worry about why is my jersey wet. You don't have to worry about those little things. You're in position just to focus on what you need to do. All the other stuff is gone. It's taken care of. You're in the moment and you're going.
So as a leader, then you've got to recognize where those little holes are, and you've got to assign someone to. I mean, as a leader, you can do all that. I've been involved in volunteer organizations, and those are difficult things to make work because it's hard to get people to volunteer to do stuff that maybe they don't want to do. And you can always try as leader to do all those little things yourself, right? So there's a balancing act, I think, between assigning. You can't just assign and then walk away and get pizza. If you're going to assign the role, you got to be willing to step up and do the role as well. So there's this, if you want the new players to sweep the locker room, you better be there. at least working on whatever while they're sweeping the locker room. Leaders got, what do they say? Leaders eat last, right?
Yeah.
You got to be willing to be serving if you want to be the leader.
I think, yeah, it's, you're sweeping, you're cleaning the locker room, you're washing the jerseys, but you're not sweeping the locker room, cleaning the jerseys, planning the schedule, and doing all those other things. Someone else's skill set can fill that role. And this kind of leads us into the next Zachism, which is manage your energy, which relates to a lot of these points. But it's also with the leader of doing your job, of the coach noticing who the kid is staying behind to sweep the locker room, so that they give them a locker in the big locker room as opposed to the secondary locker room. It's those little things that matters. Sweeping the locker room matters. Laying brick by the track at the football field matters. It's little dumb things that to most people don't make a difference, but to a lot of people, they show that you care, they show that you want to show up, and that you're filling your role, you're doing your job, and you're doing it well enough and at enough level that's going to help the team be successful in the future.
So is there a situation where you have to tell, I guess that's part of it, because you're going to have players, you're going to have coworkers, you're going to have people that they can't perform at the same, Zach, you cannot go take LeBron's place. You can't do it. All right. He's bigger. He's a little bit taller. He's a little bit better shooter. He's a little faster. All right.
Everything else.
He's a little bit of a lot better in a lot of ways, but you can't step in there. So how do you, because you can't not have support people. All right. So how do you, I guess what I'm going to get to, how do you make sure that person is comfortable in their role, and how is it possible to adjust the role itself so that you can say, well, this person does really good on 8 out of these 10 things they're supposed to do. Well, maybe we'll change this definition a little bit and have those other 2 that they're not very good at. We'll give that to this other person. We'll adjust the way we do the job.
Yeah. I mean, I did that my senior year. Like the role of a flanker, yeah, I checked the box of support a ruck, run support lines, do all those other things, but I'm not very tall, so having me jump in a line out was negative. So we took that role and we gave it to someone else. We gave that job description to someone else, and I shifted to support the backs, which is already something I did at a high level, so that I could allow them to get opportunities. It's looking at, okay, what does this person do well? What position do we already have? Does it meet that? And how do we tailor it so that they can do that successfully without hurting themselves and hurting the team? If you have someone who's a really good speechwriter or a poet type thing, you want them writing speeches. You don't want them doing little write the PowerPoint slide, because that's not going to work. You want that person writing the brief that the person's going to refer to when they're speaking to FDA. You want the person doing with the press clippings. You want to find what they do well, the job that you already have exists, and you want to merge the 2 so that they can be successful.
So, and sometimes those things that people do well are not necessarily the things they want to do, right? And that can be a problem. You're like, you're really good at these little detail things. We want you to do them. You're like, really, that's, I mean, I guess I'm good at that, but I don't. So there has to be, there has to be a reward for that, right? And people can be rewarded with money. Yep. They can be rewarded with title and prestige. They can be rewarded with, with days off. They can be rewarded with promotion. But most of all, people like smiley stars. All right. And not necessarily on their social media feed, but I've found that the best way to promote and support is to I don't want to say, I guess I'll use the word flatter, because I don't really know that's not quite the right word, is you flatter them up. All right. So I found it always in business, the people that work with me, I want to constantly tell everyone else how good these people are at the work that they do. Right. Because if I don't say that this person did a great job of making the photocopies and getting the coffee ready, then the next time they're going to be like, why should I make photocopies and get the coffee ready? I mean, why should I do it? Nobody appreciates that. And then I'm just going to stop, or I'll do worse than stopping. I'm going to do a bad job at it. Right. And then we're going to have to figure out how to compensate for this. So, and those are the things you don't want to have to do. You would love it to be automatic. So I guess praise might not be exactly the right word. We got to reserve praise for God, but there's a lot of adulation you can give to your coworkers and to your teammates and to whoever else is working with you to tell them that they're valued, that
Yeah.
that input matters.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is be kind. Say nice things behind your friend's back, and then if they're being a stupid idiot, tell it to their face, and then say more nice things behind their back. It's I can talk about this more in which will be the be kind episode, which comes further down the road. But it's the idea of let people know who are around you that you care about them and you appreciate whatever they bring to the table, regardless of how mundane or small it may seem. Um, Recognizing that, showing up and saying, "Hey, I know you've had a tough week, but you're here at practice. You're with the team, and I'm glad you're with the team today." Like it's those little things make a huge difference and can snowball effect to create people together that are comfortable doing their jobs and showing up and performing what might seem a small business of nothingness into a business of success and greatness.
Yeah. So, they say that, that charges will run through walls for leaders who look out for them. And I guess that is the thing, right? You put people in the proper place, you teach them their role, you help them do their role, you give them the freedom to do it, to make it work, whatever we just need the photocopies done. I don't care how you get it done, get it done. If you tell, and you know what? And if they kind of violate the rule a little bit, you gotta go with it, man. You have to, if they get the job done according to the spec, you gotta let it just go. You gotta let it go. And you support them, you help them when they stumble, and you praise them when they do well. And it is, you can make a team that will love every minute of being on that team, whether it's business or rugby or shooting the new Mission Impossible movie.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put that, Rafe. So, do we have any other house cleaning things or things we need to let people know about?
Well, we do have, Zach. We have a number of episodes. We talked at our pre-production meeting today about a number of phenomenal episodes that we got coming up. We got some research to do. Our research staff will be digging into that. If you would like to help contribute to the greatness that is the Bufnagle podcast, let us know. We would love to have you on. We've talked to a number of people with some incredible stories that we're looking to share. We have America's favorite rocket scientist coming up in a couple weeks, talking to us about Mars and how we can get there, and why you might want to go or why you might want to stay home. It's there's a number of things coming up. We have a number of great podcasts coming up, and it's going to prove to be a wonderful spring into summer. So, other than that, that's what we got.
All right, that sounds fantastic. So, thank you all for listening. Go seek the good, be the good, and spread the good. Enjoy the adventure of life.